Hello there, friends. My name is Jackson, and I'm one of the pastors here with Circles. And today we are continuing our series on evangelism. That is the practice of sharing and proclaiming the good news of Jesus with those around us. So we've experienced the gift of salvation. Now, how do we share it? So let's continue on our survey through John's Gospel as we learn all about evangelism together. So I want to show you guys something that is really embarrassing, maybe. Look at this big old thing. This is a water bottle I carry around with me at all times, and it's very embarrassing how big it is. And I use it to keep track of how much water I drink. Hydration, I've learned, is very important. You gotta hydrate so you don't dehydrate, I reckon. Something I've learned while working with my doctor is I have to drink a lot of water. Water is actually very important to staying healthy. And we've all been in a place before where we were like really thirsty, right? Like, when was the last time you were really, really thirsty? I'm not talking like I could go for a sip of water. I mean, like, if I'm not getting hydrated, there might be a big problem. Maybe it was the middle of a workout or during a hike or in the middle of the summer or after eating a big old bag of flaming hot Cheetos, because I know we've all been in that place where we've had to chug a bunch of water like our life depended on it, because ironically it does. Your life does depend on water. Water is vital to your health. Without water, you can't survive. Like, this is evident. It's the middle of summer down here in North Carolina, and I was working outside all weekend, and I came home and I was truly dehydrated. Like, I could feel that pain in my muscles, and I just felt like I could not drink enough water. I was just chugging and chugging and chugging, and I just couldn't get enough because my body had lost so much water in this insane heat. It's like an oven outside. I don't know how anyone lives here. Well, I live here, but it's insane what's going on right now in this temperature. And so here I am chugging all of this water because it's like over 100 degrees outside, and the heat index is like 200 degrees. That's not true, 105. I'm consuming all this water because I'm living in a literal furnace, and it still doesn't feel like enough. But it's still important that I just keep chugging, because water is vital to health. Water is vital to staying alive. A steady consumption of water keeps you alive. It's not just important, it's a requirement. But the sad thing is, you can't store up water like a camel or a cactus. You just can't do it. You actually have to drink it and sip it throughout your day. You can't just chug a whole bottle of water in the morning and be good and never thirst again. That's not how water works. You have to consistently consume it. That is the trick. That's why it's important to keep a trusty water bottle with you. That's my little life advice for you today. It doesn't have to be a massive green monstrosity like mine, but have a water bottle. It's very important to stay hydrated. Why am I ranting about water? Let's keep moving. The Gospel of John tells a series of stories about Jesus evangelizing to the people of Judea. Scripture gives us a front row seat to the story of Jesus, the greatest evangelist to ever preach, as he helps introduce someone to the true source, the true power source of salvation. John chapter 4 tells this story, and it's an amazing exchange between Jesus and an unnamed woman at a city well. What is a city well, you ask? Because that's a logical question. For context, hydration was not always as easy as going to the store and getting a bottle of Fiji. It used to be quite difficult. You would have to travel outside of the city in order to experience hydration. You would have to venture to a community well where everybody would collect water from the same place and fill up a cistern or a little jug with water and take it to their home for the day. This was a part of everyone's practice. You would go to the city well, collect your water, and take it home to cook, to drink, and to use. They didn't have running water inside their homes like we do, so they would have to venture to these community wells. What individuals would do is they would carry these empty jugs made of clay, fill them with cleanish water, and then lugged them back to their homes for use throughout the day. It was very hard work, and it proves the extreme significance of healthy drinking water and why we need it. Now, Jesus leveraged the metaphor of water to describe the miracle of everlasting satisfaction that comes with salvation. Here's something I love about Jesus. He always loves to use an illustration. Jesus never passes up the opportunity to use a parable or an illustration. So here he is standing at a city well, and and he decides to spur on a conversation talking about hydration, talking about water. But he's not talking about physical water. He's talking about spiritual water. He is talking about satisfaction that comes from salvation. Just like everyone understands the importance of literal drinking water, this woman at the well that Jesus is about to encounter, she is going to experience an amazing metaphor of the power of everlasting life, of everlasting water. Let's dive in. That's funny, like water. Anyway, let's keep going. John 4. Jesus replied, "If only you knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water." "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket," she said, "and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed?" Jesus replied, "Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life." "Please, sir," the woman said, "give me this water, then I'll never be thirsty again." We don't know this woman's name. We just call her the woman at the well. But the Apostle John spends a lot of time telling her story. It takes up a huge chunk of his book. And he loves this story clearly. And he tells this amazing, amazing story of a woman at the well. But there's something significant in this passage. She carries so much more than just the weight of the clay jugs. She is carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was weighed down by sin. She was weighed down by society's rejection. She was weighed down by a trail, a string of broken relationships. The woman at the well, when she met Jesus, everything shifted for her. It was a cataclysmic shift that happened right there at that watering hole. Jesus, he used the metaphor of water to offer her new life. A new life and a new love that would fulfill her for eternity. He didn't judge her like society did. He didn't manipulate her like past relationships did. He just extended a life-giving offer to her. Forgiveness, a full life, and living water. So since we're in a series about evangelism, let's continue to ask the significant question, what is evangelism? This passage gives us the answer. This story shows us a picture of evangelism. I know it's not a word that we throw around a lot, so let's actually define it. Evangelism is based on the Greek word euangelizo, which means to communicate good news. It simply means communicating the good news of Jesus to others. It's simple as that. Evangelism is an invitation to experience God, know Jesus, and connect with something greater than yourself. So what does evangelism even look like? Let's use Jesus' interaction with the woman at the well to learn a framework for evangelism. We're going to learn how to evangelize by looking at this story. So here are three tips that we can get from Jesus, the greatest evangelist to ever live. And we're looking at this radical encounter with the woman at the well, and we are going to learn some practical tips to help us evangelize better. The first is this: we need to meet people where they are. There's some really important context we need to understand. Most Jewish people purposely bypassed Samaria on their journeys. They avoided Samaria at all costs. Jesus did not do that. John actually explains that Jesus had to take this route. That's in the book. He had to go here. The trip that Jesus had to take put him right in the middle of Samaria. The people of Samaria hated people like Jesus. Radical racial tension between ancient Hebrews and Samaritans was very real and very difficult. This meant that this conversation wasn't just important, it was really dangerous. There was serious tension between these people. But this did not stop Jesus from crossing cultural barriers to help a person in need. Evangelism is all about meeting people where they are. Not where you think they should be, not where you expect them to be, but where they actually are in their life. And that's what Jesus did. He sought this woman out where she was, even though culturally speaking, that was very difficult. Don't expect people to just come to you. Go to them. Don't expect people to change first. Show them that change is possible. That is what Jesus did. Don't count anyone out. Why? Because God accepts everyone. And God knows that there's change is possible for all people. So, what does this look like in our lives? We should go to people where they are, understanding that they don't need to change first. They don't need to clean up their acts first. We can just meet them where they are because we are introducing them to the person, to Jesus, who can supernaturally change them from the inside out. So all that we need to do is meet people exactly where they are and let God handle the rest. Because Jesus does the life-changing work. We just get to introduce people to him. How amazing is that? So how do we connect with people when we meet them? That brings us to our second point. Conversation is way more important than presentation. Jesus didn't invite her to church. He invited her to a conversation. And the same should be true for you. Don't lecture people, love them. Don't preach at people, talk to them. Faith is a tough topic with a lot of layers, a lot of difficult layers. Thus, conversation is an important stepping stone to salvation. As Jesus spoke to her, notice what he was doing. He was learning about her. This gave him a glimpse at her heart, and it allowed him to speak to what she really needed. Jesus was seeing that this woman, she was looking for fulfillment. So he knew to speak to her need for fulfillment. She shared with him and opened up about her struggles with dissatisfaction in life. So ultimately, she shared with Jesus that she was feeling emotionally empty. She was feeling distressed, and she needed this true fulfillment. So that's exactly what Jesus offered her. This would be impossible without conversation. So we need to, every time we are in an evangelistic moment, we need to let conversation pave the way. We need to open up and hear, what is your story? What do you think? Where has God brought you? What do you make of all of this stuff? Allow conversation to pave the way, because conversation is so much more important than the presentation you bring. And the desperation that she was in required conversation, because we needed to meet her where she was in the first place. But then when we're talking, what do? What do we say? Where do we go? That's easy. We point people to Jesus, which is our third and final point. Jesus is the only source of true satisfaction. Jesus is the only source of true fulfillment. Jesus is the only source of true hope. And she understands that. She even says, I know the Messiah is coming who is going to explain everything. Isn't everyone looking for this? Isn't everyone looking for answers? Everybody wants someone or something to come into their lives to make everything better and everything make sense. We reach to relationships and rituals and resources to help us cope and help us make sense of life. Ultimately, those things, though, they fade like the smoke of an extinguished candle. They're temporary. They don't last that long. So what do we need to do? Point people to Jesus, because Jesus is the only source of salvation, the only source of true fulfillment, the only source of true change. And Jesus changes everything. As participants in the gospel, we should introduce people to the only source of true, authentic fulfillment in the entire world, and his name is Jesus. Because the people that you're talking to, they have tried a lot of solutions for the brokenness they have felt. And you get to stand before them and say, yes, what you've tried might have helped a little bit, but Jesus can help permanently. That stuff is like temporary water, but Jesus is living water. It is permanent. You will never thirst again, and you will find true fulfillment in him. That is the power of our faith in Jesus. Because the people that you are going to talk to, they might have tried all kinds of things. They might have tried empty relationships that have left them feeling more empty, but Jesus fulfills. They might have tried bad habits that have left them craving more, but Jesus fulfills. They might have tried empty philosophies that give loose answers, but Jesus provides real answers. They might have tried easy changes from self-help books, but Jesus provides true life-lasting change. That is the power of the gospel. That is why you, as an evangelist, as a person who is sharing the message, it's really one of the easiest jobs in the world, because Jesus does all the work. All you have to do is point people to him, and he starts doing his supernatural work in those people's hearts, and you get a front row seat to a miracle. There is no greater moment in the life of a Jesus follower than watching someone receive the gift of salvation. And as a person practicing evangelism, you get to experience that. And it is my prayer that you get to experience that soon. So get out there and meet people where they are, connect with conversation, and point them to Jesus. Evangelism may be a complex word, but it's not complicated at all. John helps us see how simple it can truly be. We simply meet people where they are, share a conversation with them, and point them to Jesus, the true source of satisfaction. We don't need the perfect words. We don't need the best presentation. Jesus does the real work. Jesus does the hard work. Jesus does the internal work. Jesus does the life-changing work. We're just pointing people in the right direction. We are pointing people towards Jesus, the true living water that will never leave us thirsty again. So I'm going to turn it over to our circle leaders now while we talk about this amazing story of the woman at the well and how we can practice these 3 practical tips for evangelism: connecting with conversation, meeting people where they are, and pointing people to Jesus. So I'm going to